This hunt goes back to a time frame not long after Dave's mom bought the farm. And geez, that's got to be 25 years ago. And me and Dave were hunting, and we seen a big buck come out, big 8-point, real wide, heavy, mature buck come out and go through in a way that we didn't have a shot. So we made a plan for the next day. We felt we didn't spook the buck, and we're going to go back in and we're going to hunt him. And I believe you've probably seen tidbits of this hunt, but I'd never told the whole story. So today I'll tell the whole story for you guys. We had a pretty good guess of where that buck would come out, but there's a chance it would come out way in the back. So what we did is we put Dave where we thought that buck would come out, and I sat in the back, and the plan was to wait for that buck to come out and shoot it. We're sitting there, and I look up, and here comes that buck out. It's walking out between me and Dave, more towards Dave. So I had a shot, but it was a long shot, and it was heading for Dave, so I didn't take it. Dave shoots, I see the buck stumble, run off into the brush. I figure he's dead. We're just sitting there waiting, and I hear something behind me, and this giant doe comes walking on underneath me. And this was back when we had a high population, pre-CWD years. And this doe comes walking on underneath me, and I got a doe tag, and it gets out in front of me, and it ain't even 10 yards. I wasn't very good at filming, which is why you never got the full story on this. Because I didn't get the buck on film. I didn't get Dave shooting on film. I didn't get me aiming it on film. And I had the camera mounted to the barrel of the shotgun. I have come a long ways in filming since those days. But anyways, with the gun-mounted shotgun, I shot the doe. I mean, rifles weren't even legal back in those days. And dropped her in her tracks. Got me another one.
Last night, Dan was set up over there, and I was set up in this tree here. And we had a nice buck that came across the field here. And so we had Dan set up there, and I set up here. We weren't sure if he was going to come out this trail or that trail. And it was about 6:15. He comes out and stands broadside there. And I knew he wasn't going to come down the trail, so I took a shot at him. He turned and he ran back in there. And within about a couple of minutes, Dan fires one off and dropped a monster doe. So we're having a hell of a night.
Talk about the coyotes.
Oh, we got to get moving right now because we just walked out to get the truck, and we came back and the coyotes are already howling. We don't know if it's on the deer or not. So there's so many coyotes here. We got to get out over there quick before there's nothing left. Where's that flashlight? You got it? Oh, you got it.
When I got over to Dave and we were looking for this buck, one of the things he said to me was a little strange. He said he saw a coyote from the stand carrying a stick around. And I was like, that sounds weird. I mean, dogs carry sticks sometimes, dogs that are taught to fetch, but I've never heard of a coyote carrying a stick around. And I said, you sure it wasn't a shed antler? And a little while later, lo and behold, we find a shed antler in that exact spot where he saw this coyote carrying a stick, and it had teeth marks on it. But I never did, for whatever reason, tell that story on film. Look at this. So we're looking for this buck right out in the middle of the open field. Lays a shed. It's still got its coloring and everything. It's got some coyote chewing marks on here. And it looks just like the buck that Dave shot that's been bedding over the hill. Is that cool or what? If we find Dave's buck and he's got the shed, that's going to be really cool. That buck was liver hit, and there was liver blood all over the place. And we kept jumping it, and it would run 50 yards and lay back down, and we couldn't shoot it because it was after hours. And we decided to back out till morning.
What happened? We went down there, we found blood. And we finally went down the trail. Just little drips and drips of blood. And then we got around the corner. Then he hopped up. And he went into the field, and he stood there and looked at us. There's a big pool of blood, and he bedded down. Hopefully, we're going to pull out of here. And we're going to let him sit for a while. And we'll come back. Hopefully, he should be leaned over the ridge. So hopefully, the coyotes don't get him before we get back.
And when we came back in the morning, there was one bloody bed where we had last saw it, and no blood going anywhere from there. And we tracked and tracked and tracked and never found it. And then right about the end of the season, Dave stumbled upon it on the farm in a place we never thought to look. And at least he got his rack. Unfortunately, I have no video or pictures of the rack, and I don't know whatever happened to it. Dave died, a lot of that stuff got spread out, and I'd never seen it again. But it was a pretty good one, a pretty good buck, which was Dave's big buck for his whole life until he got the giant with his bow right at the end. That doe I shot was a real big doe. And it's kind of bittersweet because I kind of regret my decisions a little bit. Because when Dave shot the buck, I was watching. I saw the buck get hit. I saw it kind of hunch up and run into the brush. And I never really thought, what if it's wounded? What if it's liver hit? I just thought, well, Dave got the buck. And now this big doe is walking out. And since we already got the buck down, why not? But in hindsight, I didn't know that he had liver shot that buck. And when we went to track the buck and found liver blood, I'm quite sure I would have really pushed Dave to just back out right then. As a matter of fact, we kind of discussed it a little bit, because I believe we'd have found that deer in that first bed, if not the second one, if we hadn't pushed it a little. And I even think when we did back out, that deer would have stayed right where it was, but we felt pressure to get that doe out of there, not let it, sit overnight. There was coyotes in the area and such. I don't know if it made a difference on getting his buck or not. But in hindsight, we were there on a buck hunt, and I shot a doe. And that may have cost Dave his biggest gun kill. Getting it right there, getting a mount out of it instead of a skull later. And getting all the meat from it. It just, it always bothered me a little bit. That little bit of greed to I got a doe here, he's already got his buck. And, not that it was greed, it was really, I thought, he's got his buck. But there's that little bit of me thinking, God, you dummy. You should have held out. Shoot a doe any day. This is a buck hunt. He's got his buck. Mission accomplished. Enough deer down. Some lessons are hard learned.